I believe, are the next section that's in the list, and I'll look to Director Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. So we'll start off with item 9, which is driveway snow removal. So management is recommending the removal of this program. It's valued at approximately $350,000. And this consists of any of the windrows that are put in front of people's driveways throughout the residential neighborhoods as a result of our snow removal operations. This is a service that's not unique to Grande Prairie, but we are an outlier in providing the service. There are other communities that do provide it, but they're few and far between. The estimation of about $350,000 in savings is the result. It costs about, in manpower, it's about one extra piece of equipment. So if it takes us, our crews are typically 3 pieces of equipment at our current standard, we could maintain a similar level of service without driveway snow removal with 2 pieces of equipment.
We'll go through all the line items in a service area, and then we'll do a round of questions.
All right. And on to line item 10, which is environmental services and development engineering. So the adjustments here that we're proposing include reductions to the staffing contingent or the resources that we have in this area, as well as reductions to our consulting budgets that allow us to access external consulting resources to address some emerging needs that may not be budgeted. So that could be things like the 2018 spring floods or the storm study that we recently did for the new public high school. It's not that we couldn't do these, but we would have to defer them to either a later time or have to request additional resources or reprioritize the funding. As well, the adjustments in environment would result in decreased internal and external customer service levels, as well as a reduced presence in the community, as just simply as a result of less resources to carry out the activities. On the engineering side, the impacts have largely already been absorbed into current operations, with vacant positions that have not been filled. As well, we may see some impacts on the engineering side if we saw an increase in development activity, just given that we would have a smaller platform to build off of and the less flexibility with reduced consulting budgets. Moving on to line item 11, inspection services. The adjustments in this area are largely to reflect market demand. We have staffed for levels of activity that exceed what we are currently realizing in the city, and we don't see an immediate uptick in that happening. You know, given our crystal ball is not that good, but right now it's not looking as though we're going to see a significant uptick in building resources that justify the existing platform that we have. If we did see a fairly immediate impact, it would result in slower entry of permits, inspection requests, as well as the issuance of permits. And this would largely be during peak times. Moving on to line item 12 in planning and development. This adjustment reflects adjustments that we've actually already made in that area with not filling vacancies. So we're not anticipating a significant difference in service levels in the planning and development area as of today. So these adjustments will be similar to any of the other development related adjustments in that we'll have less flexibility as if demand increases. There will also be less flexibility in this area to do any of the in-house work or some council referrals that we may get for planning. That could be area redevelopment plans, reviews of plans, or any other special requests that would be outside of our business plan. And I'm available for any questions.
Thanks very much, Director Glavin. Any questions for administration at this stage? Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Gibbon. Just to clarify, when you're talking about, you know, the platform, what's the platform that we'd be setting this up for? Like, what would be the amount of housing starts that we'd be anticipating that we could still capture with that, with these reductions?
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. So the platform is approximately 400 units of housing. Now, there are ways that we can add resources and take resources out of that to meet some fluctuations in that. But as you saw earlier today, that we're sitting at, you know, less than 200 housing starts this year, where it's well within our capacity. We wouldn't actually recommend going anywhere below what we're proposing, just due to staff training, sick time, vacations. We need to have the coverage in place so that we can maintain the service.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Bressy.
Great, thank you, Mayor Given. Just 2 questions about the driveway snow removal. I'm wondering if you happen to know about how many driveways we're currently doing the service for.
Director Glavin.
I couldn't give you an exact amount on that. I think our dwelling units in the city are in the ballpark of 25,000. 25% of those roughly are multifamily, so you would have less driveways with that. If you said in the ballpark of 20,000, you're, well, difficult to estimate.
That's fine if you don't know.
So, Councillor Bressy, just on that point, I appreciate, and maybe the former director responsible would have some information on that, but I remember that there are also a number of households that would have frontage onto priority 1 or 2 routes, which actually don't receive a direct benefit from this program. So there's I'm remembering it was about 50% of the single family dwellings receive the benefit of this program. Is that? Yes. Yeah. So the city manager is giving me a yes, that's within the ballpark. So it isn't 100% of city residents. It is 50% of the single family dwellings benefit from this program.
And this assumes, and I'm assuming this 350 assumes it assumes 5 residential snow removals in the season.
Dr. Glavin?
We currently budget for 3 residential snow removals.
Okay, Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. Brian, Director Glavin, sorry, thank you for the presentation. Just a question on the environmental services and development engineering. On the sheet we have here, it says a reduction in non-core community environmental programming, which would include period. I just want to know what non-core environmental programming that would include in the reductions.
Thank you, Mayor Given. So there's a number of activities that we carry out through the environmental services area. So that could include something like the commuter challenge, walk through the forest, city scrub, the corporate sustainability initiative, and a number of other projects and programs that are in that vein.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Brian. Bill Mayor. The question for this environmental gain, like you're saying, there's the provincial and federal legislative compliance. That means is there a standard of the environmental requirement, or it's kind of a grant you get?
Thank you for giving. On the regulatory side, there are a number of regulations that we need to follow both provincially and federally to mitigate the city's risks of, and it could be spills that are done by a business, a resident that are untraceable. For example, if we had a spill in the Walmart parking lot that made it into our storm system and we couldn't trace it back to who it actually was, the liability rests with the city to mitigate any of that at the storm outfall, for example. So we would have to take mitigative measures along the Bear Creek corridor in order to ensure that we meet our regulatory obligations.
Dr. Glavin, similarly on line 10, can you give me a rough breakdown in terms of numbers between regulatory compliance and proactive programming?
Sure. So in there are a number of functions that we have. So we have a...
There's a dollar value, I guess.
Yeah. So on the regulatory side, very roughly speaking, we would call it a third of the expenditures in that area would be regulatory, as it's not all split with one person or a combination of, or it can be a combination of line items. It would be approximately a third of the overall budget of that area would be regulatory in nature.
Okay, so with respect, so if council wish to, I mean, where I'm going with this, if council wish to maintain a position in providing proactive community engagement and programming, what's 681,000 less that proactive community programming portion?
So in the community programming area, we would probably need to retain in the neighborhood of $100,000.
Approximately 100,000. Okay. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. And kind of in a similar vein to the last rounds of questions, I was just going over our energy management and environmental services plan, and their mission is to monitor energy consumption, support the generation of sustainable energy, and protect environmental assets through scientific methods and collaborative engagement. It's a pretty big line item. I don't know how to separate it between engineering services and environmental, but with this, how drastically would this impact our ability to do all those functions, such as monitor the environment, stay ahead of the game, encourage renewable energy programs, etc.?
Thank you, Mayor Given. So in areas where we would be being proactive with the community, for example, and encouraging the adoption of different heating methods or energy production or ways to reduce your energy consumption, that would be impacted significantly by this, as that we wouldn't have the resources to dedicate to that function specifically.
So we would just stop doing that then, or?
Well, there would still be opportunities for us to allocate some of our existing resources to that, but it would be significantly lessened. I couldn't give you an exact that we wouldn't be able to do anything, but it would be our capacity to engage in those activities would be significantly reduced.
Now, if I may follow up with another question, how much more capital would we have to find in consulting services if we were to see these reductions?
So you're asking, just to clarify, that if we made these reductions, would there be a corresponding increase in consulting fees to achieve the ends?
Yes.
I wouldn't have you an exact number on that. It would depend on the scope of the initiatives that we would have to replace with a consultant in order to achieve.
But depending on the size of the project or whatever scope we need to achieve, we would have to potentially hire consultants at a higher dollar value than what we could provide in-house.
Mr. Glavin?
If there was an end that council directed us to achieve, we would have to request additional dollars. And again, it would depend upon the scope of that and the timelines in which we would be directed to achieve.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Sorry, Councillor Minhas, you're in the queue there just as I hit clear queue. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'd like to put the motion for this.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Clayton, you had a question?
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
okay. We'll come back to you, Councillor Minhas, for your motion. Councillor Clayton?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just a question for Director Glavin in regards to planning and development. With the elimination of 2 FTEs and noting that it has minimal impact, I'm curious what the department looks like if this were to go through in regards to if there's any other area development plans that we foresee in the future that you may need to bring back people within this budget.
So if there were a request to do an additional area redevelopment plan outside of the ones that are currently underway, we would likely have to just set expectations on the timelines for that, or that we would have to set aside other work that was planned in our business plan to do it. If it was a priority to conduct another area redevelopment plan within the city, it's something, and it were a priority of council and it would supersede other priorities that have already been baked into our operational plans, we would have the capacity to do it. Otherwise, we would likely be looking at contracting that service for that particular deliverable.
So assuming then based on what the department looks like with the elimination of 2 FTEs, that you have the appropriate staff for the very near future, is there opportunity to reduce this department even more?
Dr. Glavin?
Thank you, Mayor Given. We wouldn't recommend any further reductions in resources to this area at this time.
Is it fair to say then, Director Glavin, that there's adequate developed land and service land for the foreseeable future based on the current housing starts?
Dr. Glavin?
Yeah, Mayor Given. Obviously, there's a significant amount of market influence on where and when development occurs. Yes, there is a significant amount of land that is planned for through our area structure plans and outline plans throughout the city, as well as some of the serviced and subdivided land that currently exists. However, that being said, other investors may take a different look at the market and may choose to direct that investment elsewhere in the city, which would require additional amendments to area structure plans or new outline plans.
Okay, thank you.
Director Glavin. Councillor Clayton. Councillor Minhas, I guess we're back to you.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I like to put the motion to 10, 11, 12 as the administration required to approve by the council.
Okay, so
And 9 should be taken, I don't know, should put as separate or...
okay, so Councillor Minhas, you're making a motion that council approve the reductions as proposed in lines 10, 11, and 12. Is that correct? Okay, and so that's a motion to remove the amounts as recommended by administration on those 3 line items. Open for discussion debate. Councillor Thiessen?
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. If I might, could I ask to split out environmental services from that motion, please?
So line 10. Okay. Okay, so let's deal then with the 11 and 12, the 2 that haven't been split out. Any discussion debate on lines 11 and 12, which are reductions to inspection services and reductions to planning and development. Any discussion debate on those items? I don't see anyone in the queue. Then I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And now we'll move to discussion and debate on Councillor Minhas's motion on line 10 to remove the $681,376 as put forward by administration. Councillor Thiessen.
Just a question to administration. Thank you, Mayor Given. It's a big line item. It's $681,000 that we were shown here. What is the split between environmental services and the engineering development and engineering?
Dr. Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Given. So in there we have, call it about 75-25 engineering to environment, roughly.
So
Sorry, Councillor Thiessen, Director Glavin, I asked that question earlier about sort of the proactive community programming component was approximately $100,000. Is that the answer that you gave earlier?
Yes, approximately. So there are a number of line items in here that I could go into. Mm-hmm. Some of them aren't all directly related to the community outreach in the environment budget.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Thiessen, go ahead.
Sorry, so just a clarity, is 75% of the engineering and then 25% in the environmental services?
Roughly speaking, yes.
Okay. I don't know if it's appropriate to discuss what we're looking at cutting further out of the environmental services, or I right now 100,000 is in community programming. Is there any other further reductions, plans, studies, stuff like that?
Dr. Glavin?
Mayor Given, yes, there is a number of, we're almost at the point where I would start having to go line by line on.
Sure. So, Director Glavin, if you want to give council additional information about how this splits out and there are additional in-camera items that need to be discussed, then we can have a motion to go in camera.
Okay, I would make a motion to go in camera.
Okay. So Councillor Thiessen has a motion to go in camera to get more details on line item number 10. I'll call for the vote on going in camera. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. So the city manager would identify, I would imagine, the directors of administration and finance to stay, along with other support staff, to be able to support council in this discussion. And we'll just make sure that we've cut our